If you could pick the most important area of your life to get organized in, right, the one that's going to have the biggest impact on you, what would that be? This is Life Work with Maya, where we talk about success on your terms and tune in to work and lives that feel spacious, abundant, and aligned with who we truly are. So we're roughly in mid-March of 2023. I've had a few interview episodes and I've got a few more coming, which I'm super excited to share. Those are often recorded ahead of time. And what I wanted to do was have an interlude with a solo episode that is very much tied to our calendar and say, actually, hello, we are now approaching the end of the first quarter, scary as that might sound, of 2023. And the reason why I wanted to do that in mid-March is to just get us thinking about what that first quarter review might look like. I don't know about you, but by the time we hit March, it's easy to forget actually that January energy, which has a slowness to it, and it has, I think, more space for reflection. By the time we hit March, I think things are happening at quite a rapid pace, and it feels like we're in a very different mindset from the ones that we might have been in the end of December or January. But I think it's even more important then to make that conscious effort to do the reflection work and really do that end of Q1 review. I think there is something very affirming about doing that Q1 review, even if you feel like, whoa, there's just so much going on, I can't really take stock of it all. That feels like a lot. I think if you can do it in Q1, it makes the half year review easier. It makes the end of year review easier. So it just makes a lot of other things easier in the future. So your future self will thank you for that Q1 review. And reminder of some of the extra benefits that we do get from undertaking these reviews, whether they are daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly reviews. There is a dopamine hit when we realize all the things that we've done. And this doesn't just include achievements, work-related achievements. It might be that we've done a lot of social stuff and we're really proud of being able to make the time to do all of that amidst a busy schedule, things that we've really enjoyed. It's a lovely time to savor those and reflect on those. So there's that piece, that hit, literally, a chemical, dopamine hit. There's that confidence boost of saying, wow, I hadn't quite realized how much has been going on. And then that sets us up really well for the second quarter of the year. And it also gives us a chance to reevaluate. And this is the thing. Sometimes people feel overwhelmed in goal setting because they think, well, how can I do goal setting for an entire year? Things are going to change. Life is going to happen. All this planning is a little bit assuming that things are just going to happen as we expect them to. And actually, this quarterly planning, monthly planning allows us that opportunity to go back to those goals that we might have set excitedly on January the 1st and look at them, see where we are against them, see what's fallen off the radar, brush that aside and say, actually, that just doesn't feel relevant for me anymore. And we may even notice that other things have happened quicker than we expected because we merely brought them into our consciousness and we were able to tick those off. And then we can really come up with a clarified, renewed list for the next quarter. So loads of benefits of doing that type of review. Now, I personally really benefit from hearing other people's lists. It's why I love listening to other podcasts where they get into the nitty-gritty. It's also something that matters to me a lot in my coaching. I benefit from receiving suggestions when I'm in coaching and mentoring type conversations. And I really enjoy being able to do that with my clients. And knowing how valuable it can be to just hear how other people do things, I wanted to set out my personal reflections about how my goals are going at present, and also a little bit around how my planning process is going. So I'm going to have a look at those two areas, pick out a few goals that I've been working on that I've already shared a little bit about. So you might already, if you are a regular listener, you might already have an inkling about what these relate to. The first thing I wanted to start off with was all things home and house. And as you know, the last few episodes have been focused on first decluttering and organizing, and then specifically on the home. So I guess it's all still super relevant that these are things that are front of mind for me. However, when it comes to me then wanting to take stock right now, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, this stuff is happening at an absolute snail's pace. There was a bit of momentum when we had that just end of holiday time in January. Maybe the few weekends afterwards, I was able to just keep plowing through these lists of like furniture and other things that we needed to resolve. But really, it feels like it is happening at such a slow pace. I almost feel unmotivated to do this review. And I'm sharing this out loud because I want to name that. And also, it's part of this reflection, actually demonstrate that stuff has happened and has moved forward as a result of setting those intentions. So actually, the furniture list is not looking that bad. First of all, we had a TV area and we could not figure out the space. We didn't know what else it needed. Did it need some other sofas? Did it need a slightly different layout? We wanted to create a bit more of a cinema experience. And it just felt very, very unresolved. But we've actually resolved that now. We know what we're going to do. I'd managed to get a gum tree sofa. And so we're going to use that as a bit of a chaise so that people can kind of lie and look straight ahead and watch the TV. So we've got to get that moved up. It's really heavy though. So we're waiting for a bit of help to get that moved up. But at least we know what's happening there. I've also treated myself to a few cushions, which just transform the space and they match the wallpaper that I have in my upstairs bathroom. So it's amazing what some really, cheap cushion covers from Amazon can do to transform a space and make it look like it all hangs together so much more because the colors all work rather than I had some old prints of cushions that just didn't work with the colors. So we've resolved that space in terms of we've spent a lot of time figuring out what could be the best configuration in there to allow for all the things that happen in that space. There's TV watching, kids do quite a lot of dancing in there. And we didn't want it to feel like the space was too locked down. Like we didn't want to get some massive sectional, as they call it in the US, sectional sofa that really meant that there was no flexibility in case they just wanted to push all the sofas to the side and have like a real dance fest. I was waiting for the January sales and that was really unsuccessful actually for a downstairs area. So I finally managed to order a sofa, but I've had really bad luck with it. They keep putting me off. They then cancelled the order. I then had to ring back. The price has gone up. And so it's been a whole process. It's been really frustrating actually. And so in my head, the whole furniture thing has gone really wrong because that thing is in theory not coming until April or end of April. And I've just got this inkling that they're going to cancel it again. And I've just got this doubt. But I got that approved, that sofa. I got buy-in from so many different people whose opinions matter to me that I'm not going to start again. I don't want to start again in the process of looking for another sofa for that space. So that's been really frustrating, but in theory, that's the big missing piece. And then I was able to say, actually, my extensive list of all these little items, there were lamps for my daughter's room, and she wanted a pegboard situation, which has arrived, but it hasn't been mounted. So there's a lot of DIY stuff that needs to happen. A lot of it has happened, but it hasn't really come together yet because there needs to be a day when the all gets set up. For example, I ordered something for my office space, but that hasn't even been unpacked from its box yet and it's heavy. So there's a lot of things that are still just pending. And in my head, therefore, creating this sense of like limbo, don't really know where it is. It's not complete. It's not finished. And I sort of feel a little bit avoidant around it all, frankly. The good bit, though, is that I was able to tick off a lot of stuff that needed to be dealt with in that list and then move on to something which I think is more fun, which is putting stuff on the walls. And I've started that process. And again, it feels like it's moving at absolute snail's pace. The first thing I decided was that actually it's a really nice weekend activity. So again, I've talked in previous episodes about switch off and the idea that I don't think it's that easy to go from a really intense working week to a switch off phase where you're just completely zen and in the moment and enjoying your leisure time. I'm not convinced by that. It certainly doesn't work for me, and I know it doesn't work for my clients. So what has been working, and I even did this before we went away in February half term, is when I am in switch off, in inverted commas, mode, that's when looking up prints online and looking up pictures and stuff like that is a really nice switch over activity. It's completely nothing to do with work. And so it gives me that shift, but it's still a bit active and it's quite relaxing looking at different artworks and prints and colors and things like that. So I've made that a bit of a weekend activity or travel activity. And that's been really nice. It's nice to have something that I think, oh, I can do that. And I can feel like I'm very much in weekend mode. On the flip side, it means that it does kind of get squeezed into the cracks of the weekend or those moments. And I haven't necessarily moved it on that quickly. And when I think about all of the different places that I do want to get dealt with, I just think, oh gosh, there's still a lot to do. So my patience is being slightly tested. I want it all finished, but it takes time. Then you have to do measurements, make sure it's the right thing. So it's going unbelievably slowly, but it is happening. And this review out loud is a way of me acknowledging that the stuff is happening. And I wonder whether you have anything like this going on for you, which is happening at a similar pace. I wanted to let you know about my masterclass. It's around the corner on the 16th of March, which is a Thursday, and it's at 12:30 p.m. UK lunchtime. I do hope it will work for my international listeners as well, even if it's kind of one of the first things you do in the morning or a bit later in the evening. I know I've got some amazing international listeners in places like Nepal and Slovakia and Canada. So do keep listening, and I really hope you're able to attend this as well. And really, in this podcast, we talk about all the themes that come up with my clients and I know are important to them, because I want to be able to support you in your thinking, feeling, and actions when it comes to life, work, and success on your own terms. But what do clients come to me for? They come with very specific goals around wanting to take their careers to the next level. They want to get paid more in work that feels really aligned with who they are, in work that truly excites them without having to sell their soul, burn out, work 14-hour days. And this is the stuff I'm going to be talking through in my masterclass. I have a simple method for this. And simple doesn't mean that it was just sort of developed overnight. It's been years in the making with published research behind it, quite rigorous stuff that it was, had to jump through a number of hoops. So it's really properly validated stuff based on hundreds of leaders in financial institutions and who have trained at LBS. It's also based on my experience directly coaching clients, hundreds of leaders that I've coached over the years, which is why I'm now accredited at master level with one of the top 3 professional coaching bodies. And finally, it's based on my career experience. I do increasingly get asked by clients about my own way of doing things. I wouldn't say I took the typical path on a number of things. And this stuff also plays into my method. So this is what I'm going to talk through on that day. I shared it early last week and I was surprised to get a really quick number of signups, and I am keeping this intimate. It is a private masterclass, so I want to keep it feeling intimate and like a real masterclass. So if you are interested, don't hesitate, get yourself registered, and then if you do register, do honor that place, because I will be capping numbers, and so I wouldn't want somebody to take that place that could have gone to somebody else. I look forward to speaking with you in a different format in that masterclass. The other thing that I had attempted in January was the 10-minute declutters. And they started off being an hour of decluttering while listening to an audiobook, which then morphed into 10 minutes listening to a podcast before watching Netflix, which worked for January. So it was great for the vibe of January. I think it sort of fell away in the busyness of February because we were away. And actually, part of February's podcast focus, which was on decluttering, was me saying, I really want to focus on the most important parts of organizing and decluttering. There's no point in me having a really organized sock drawer. We always like to use that as the ultimate symbol of decluttering. There's no point in me having a really organized sock drawer if my admin and finances are not in order. And with that whole, for those of us who are self-employed, with that whole end of Jan tax return, it's quite a focusing experience. And it occurred to me that the most important stuff that I wanted to organize was all things life and finance admin. So that's actually occupied a bit more of my decluttering focus rather than specific home things. And what it means is that I'm starting to notice little piles of junk, like on, the second step of the staircase and things like that. And my brain's not really processing them, but I know they're there. And maybe it would be nice to give myself a little break from the desk to go and just do a 10-minute whip around. So let's see, maybe I will bring that physical home decluttering back in, but certainly the priority for me is more around getting the most important stuff organized first. And I also want to put that challenge to you to say, if you could pick the most important area of your life to get organized in, right? The one that's going to have the biggest impact on you, what would that be? And I talked in January goal setting around when I had joined a workshop on goal setting. And the thing that everybody felt was they hadn't got done and it made them feel like they weren't on top of their lives was getting their wills done. And I think that's a lovely example. There's a myriad of that type of stuff, isn't there? Whether it's knowing that you've got all of the right insurances and that you've done a checklist of that you've got those, but then not only have you got them, but you know what benefits you have, so that when the need arises, which is always often quite a stressful time, you can actually reach out and use that stuff. So for example, we had a drain situation, and I'm not sure that we correctly utilized our some emergency home cover that we had. And it's only because we sat down as part of this organizing to take stock of what we actually have available to us. And my husband also made me aware of some really good car services stuff that we have that he's now had to make use of. And it's really reassuring for me to know that I have that stuff, but you kind of need to sit down and take stock of it. So my decluttering and organizing journey has actually morphed into more of that stuff. I don't think it's something that will have a beginning and end. I don't think I'll ever be completely on top of it. But I do feel that there is a certain amount of work to get it into more of a steady state and just sort of ticking over and feeling like I'm on top of all of that stuff. So I just wanted to give that update in terms of the decluttering. And I'm pleased that I've had time for fun activities as well, whether it was getting away in February onto the slopes, or we went recently to celebrate Holi, which is an Indian festival where you throw colored powder at each other and there's loads of music and dancing and it's just an absolute riot. We did that as a family with another family and it was just such a great experience for the kids as well. I think they had no idea what to expect. It's certainly not something that, we grew up doing. We were a little bit worried that it was going to be cold, but we went, and I always have Laura Vanderkam's one small adventure, one big adventure per week in mind. And it just helps when I'm not sure if we want to do something or not. It helps to have that lens of, oh, this could be, the weekly adventure. And I think amidst a busy few months, it's been nice also to think that we've found time to do fun activities, whether that's dancing at home or getting out and about or even getting away on the slopes. And the other thing I've had plenty of time for, having reconfigured or solved this TV den, is I've had plenty of time for Netflix in the evenings. I've found it a way to just completely zone out. First of all, as I mentioned in the Lazy Ways to Declutter episode, I actually used it for that purpose to get some filing in order. I then started using it for all the admin stuff that I wasn't getting to in the day for my work. I found that really useful actually because it was kind of relaxing and I could just get on with some of that stuff, to do with admin. But I could also do it in a way that felt really relaxing and cozy. I always have a duvet when I'm watching and I feel really snug. So that's been good. And I now need to question and revisit whether that Netflix habit is going to continue to serve me, because it might be bordering on to a bit more of an addiction or a habit. And actually, that brings me on to another interesting reflection of the last quarter, which is that I've always been an early riser. For a while, I was talking a lot about the 5 a.m. club. And in my mind, there is just a real magic to waking up early and getting the most difficult tasks of the day done. But for some reason, recently, and I say recently, I mean in the last year plus, I haven't really been able to make the most of that early morning time. Even if I do wake up, I haven't always then got up and got on with my day. And I was wondering what was stopping me from doing this. And I realized that what had happened is I had been doing that early morning wake up during the pandemic when I had the masters to do, and literally waking up and doing 4 hours of intense work on this masters before the kids got up and the day began, or before school had to kick off. And that was fine. I think it was a bit of a crisis phase, to be honest. I was just not sure how it was going to be possible otherwise. I think I was really facing the pressure of like, how am I going to get this done amidst everything else? And that gave me the kind of maybe the adrenaline to do that. And so in my mind, I had this idea that you wake up early in order to knock off your hardest tasks of the day first. Like I'm talking at 5 a.m., and actually reflecting, that has been stopping me from getting up and having a nice morning, because I do really enjoy that time of day. But I had associated it with needing to do tough stuff. And frankly, right now, I just don't have. I'm already going to be working all week. I already will have a busy week. I don't really fancy waking up earlier just to get ahead of my work. It's not enough to get me going. And so I'm experimenting with something slightly different now to say, look, you love waking up early, get your coffee. You know how that's a really nice part of your routine. Get back to your journal and have some time with that. And don't feel the pressure that you've got to do anything noble at that time of day, and just benefit from having that to get ahead. And what I've done is, as I've then started journaling, I get a little bit of, oh, I need to do this or that. And I get some ideas, and some planning stuff happens sort of very organically without any pressure. And that's all that I expect from that time. So I'm hoping to gently reinstate that earlier waking up time alongside perhaps the less Netflixy evenings. So so that's a slight aside, a little bit of reflection of how the habits are all working, and how, you have phases of things serving you, and then they need sometimes just a refresh, and a new season, new quarter, or maybe coming back from holiday or any other kind of fresh start can be a nice time to just, once you know that perhaps a habit isn't serving you, you can just refresh it. And this is some examples of how I am doing that. So the final bit I wanted to review was my own planning process and how that's going. I bought a page-a-day diary. I was quite excited about it. I have to say, I haven't connected with it as much as I was hoping to, partly because of what I was just discussing. I used to do that type of planning in the evening so that I knew exactly what I was doing the next day in that old world where I used to wake up early and get loads of deep work done before 9 a.m. That doesn't happen anymore. And actually, what's happening instead is that I do leave it till later in the day. I do feel the need to do some form of reflection and processing in that journal before I go to sleep. But I'm often quite tired at that point, and it's not really that great. And so moving that to the morning the next day, I think might be a way forward. The other thing is that I am using much more the Outlook calendar and Apple Notes as more of a planning system, actually. So I find Outlook just, a brilliant calendar tool. I should really be migrating over to Google Calendars, but I find Outlook so easy to use, so easy to see the landscape of your week. And as part of my decluttering and watching Netflix, I did sort out all my Apple Notes. So I did a really good cleanup of those, filed them, dusted off some old notes. It was quite a nice experience as well to look through some of those lists and think about all the different phases of different projects that I've been involved with, and just kind of reminisce a little bit about those. By getting those in order, I feel like the notes is a much more powerful organizational system for me now. I am using it. I've used it effectively as a daily to-do list for quite a long time, or a weekly to-do list. I just whack on a load of things onto that list at the beginning of the week or the Friday before, and they're just sitting there and they just get ticked off. There's a beautiful tick off function, isn't there, in Apple Notes? And so I have to say, actually, my digital planning is probably taking a little bit of priority over the written planning. And so let's see how it looks over the next quarter. But actually, again, as I was about to do this review, I was thinking, oh, it's not really going that well, mainly because I was thinking about that physical planner. I was thinking that it hadn't really been as smooth as I was hoping, and I need to persist with it. But I'm not really using the page a day function that well right now. It also has a monthly planner view. But, overall, not that bad, right? It's just your first reaction, if it's not swimming along, can be that it's not that great. It's not bad. The more important part actually for me has been the together planning. So by the time you've got a family, couple of kids, it's fine to be able to plan on your own. Like, it's fine for me to have a great system. But if I don't have a really, really good planning system with my husband, then it's going to get really, really tricky, because we have school holidays to navigate. We have various trip possibilities coming into the diary. There is a lot that needs to be considered, both at a yearly view, sort of looking out at the year ahead and thinking about the landscape of that and what different travel plans are coming up and that sort of thing, as well as the week to view, literally the fact that the next day, one of your kids might have a match and that needs different pickup logistics. So really being on top of that weekly logistic. But then the whole quarter ahead needs to be looked at, because it will inevitably contain a school holiday, which needs planning. So actually, the thing that is probably going well in my planning is that we've reinstated our weekly meetings where we actually go through a lot of this stuff. And, obviously we then also use our strengths, which is what Caroline was talking about last time in terms of clutter and decluttering. What are your strengths? We use our strengths there. I am an ex-economist and my husband's an accountant. So when it comes to some more of that financial stuff, we can put our heads together and it can be quite a useful session on that front as well. So I do think that actually recognizing the importance of planning in your different teams is really important. And home life is just not going to function well when two of us who are, hopefully actively co-parenting and both working, we really need to get that planning nailed. And so I would say actually that is the bit that is the strongest, and still I would like, to do more on. But now what we've started doing is saying at the beginning of the week, getting a bit of an agenda of what we're going to cover the following week so we can actually do some stuff and then discuss it together. So for example, if it's for the Easter holidays, like having a think about what camps they might do, the kids might do, and then coming and discussing those rather than coming empty to the meeting and then trying to figure it all out while we're together. And obviously some of that won't even be figure outable because it's the weekend. So it's another layer of planning, which is actually as a couple, as a family unit, what sorts of things are you doing to make that run really smoothly? So I would say that part is going well. Looking to the next quarter now, I guess. So as I think about the quarter ahead, Q2, I think the first thing is that it's probably my favorite quarter in terms of seasons. Spring for me, April is one of the most beautiful months. And so I want to make the most of that. So I would like to include some national parks or other places where you can see flowers. That would be really important to me. And I still have a sort of like a hangover from, I don't know, maybe a decade or more ago when I used to have to study at this time of year for different exams. And I always remember feeling so hard done by. And so now that I don't have to study, I really want to make the most of this beautiful quarter. So that's the first thing. And then actually, I am going to keep the other priorities sort of in a bit of the same in parallel actually to Q1. So I'm still going to have that house track running along at its snail's pace and then see where that gets me. And the other things I'm going to keep ticking over. As I've mentioned in January, I have a business coach now. And so a lot of the stuff which would have had to be kind of needle moving stuff outside, my business as usual has actually been folded into my week, and I'm just kind of getting on with it as part of that group work. It's not an easy thing. It means that work feels challenging and demanding, and definitely the next couple of months feel like they've got a lot in them. With that in mind, this other stuff like house stuff it will be good to just kind of keep all of that chugging along and ticking over. Nothing absolutely huge going on. And yes, making the most of spring. So those are my plans, and I will no doubt refine those as I actually put pen to paper. But I would love to hear what you are thinking about your next quarter, and also how you are going to embark on and reward yourself for your Q1 and your Q1 review. So let me know how all of that goes. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Life Work with Maya. If you've got to this point, I'm guessing you found it valuable. So do share the link with somebody else who can benefit. In an age of materialism and us trying to stay on top of clutter, what could be nicer than to send a non-clutter digital link to somebody and say, I listened to this and I thought you might love it. What a great way to show your care and consideration for them. If you haven't left a review, now is the time, and make sure that you are subscribed on Spotify or you're following along on Apple Podcasts. And if you really want to help the show grow, then do share the link on IG stories, Instagram stories, or reshare or discuss your thoughts with my LinkedIn posts. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. Do feel free to send me messages there. I love having dialogue with my listeners, and the links to those handles are in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye-bye.